Your hair looks amazing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am your host, Stephen Stark, and joining me this week, a plethora of people smarter than me to talk about one of the best shows of the last year. We've got Arch-Maester Emma, longtime contributor here, like, I don't know how many times you've been a guest on the channel now, Emma, recently and ages ago as well. And also returning for the third time, or
no,
something?
This is only second time.
It is still okay, but I was on your podcast recently. There,
yes,
talking about Hot D,
Yep.
And this is Blue Lemons and LittleWolfBird of the Silent Sisters podcast. So, thank you, friends, for joining me. John was supposed to be here, but he is still having a lot of family issues going on, so he just wasn't up to it when it started getting to be time.
We miss you, John.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, who wants to help? And everybody said me, and I'm only too happy to get a bunch of really smart people on here to make me look smarter by extension. So thank you all for doing that. And yeah, so we're going to talk about the whole season of House of the Dragon. Just a couple hour conversation because I have my own thoughts that I haven't really shared. And I mean, I know I've shared some of them on the Silent Sisters podcast, but it was really more focused on a single episode. And yeah, we wanted to do it just here on the channel. And I always like to give my guests the first chance to speak. So I'm just going to start here, and then I'll go counterclockwise. Emma, what's your overall impressions like of season 1 of Hot D? And from here on out, I'm only going to call it Hot D. John is not here to get upset about it, so.
I really, really enjoyed House of the Dragon. It is, I think, my new favorite ever show, maybe, potentially. I'm really enthusiastic about basically all of the adaptational choices that they made and the kind of storytelling that is happening, with a few caveats. But on the whole, I think it was a incredible show with a lot of storytelling that I really enjoyed. So can't really complain too much for sort of my experience.
I mean, you could, but I'm a little bit surprised to hear you say favorite show of all time already. I know how obsessive you get.
Oh yeah, to clarify, hyperfixations, all of the neurodivergencies, this is a huge caveat to the level of enjoyment here. But yes, I think this is a very promising start.
All right, well that's good. LittleWolfBird, how about you? Overall impression of the season?
Overall, I'm very pleased. We know we ended Game of Thrones with, it was rough at
controversial.
The end. Yeah, it was rough, and I am extremely pleased with how everything happened. If you listen to the Silent Sisters, you will hear me go on about the time jumps. I still have an issue with that, but the further I get out from my initial reactions, currently I'm okay. I think that the writing was exceptional. I mean, I don't even think I need to touch on the acting because that was made the show by far. I am very pleased. I'm very happy with how it went. I was not expecting to get as into it as I did, and I think that's a credit to the show.
Okay, well, I think I probably talked a little bit more about the show with you, Blue, more than anybody else here. So I think I know what you're gonna say. But for the sake of everybody who hasn't had the benefit of that type of wonderful conversation, what did you think?
I would say 95% loved.
Mhm.
And there, the other 5% was significant, but it wasn't, I think it was stuff that we criticized with love
Mhm.
rather than dislike. Yeah, so no, I mean, I think it was a solid first season, and the acting was superb. Didn't like how they portrayed certain things, but that was only once in a while. But and I think there was only some maybe momentary weaknesses in some characterization and writing, but nothing that really stands out. But like 95% loved,
Yeah, I'm going to echo what everybody else is saying, more or less. I also really, really enjoyed it. If I was going to pick one thing to nitpick, it would be maybe the time jump. Again, the early actors for Allison and Rhaenyra just didn't get enough screen time, and they were both amazing.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. When the criticism of the show is we would like more time with all of these characters, that's a credit to it in and of itself.
Yeah.
I think, like, not just, I mean, not specifically talking about the time jumps, but time in general, more of my biggest critique with the last handful of seasons of Game of Thrones was the story. I was like, okay, but why did they come to this conclusion? How did this come about? Sure, you're not going to give me the nitty-gritty war council details, this, that, and the other, but give me some reason that this is happening instead of it just happening. And what? That doesn't make sense. So in the show, I didn't feel that at all. I do feel like in the latter half of the season, there was more where I was like, okay, this happened in something I didn't see. There's clearly a reason for it. My upsetness comes from, like, I'm really happy that there's a reason, there's a logical plan. They have, everything, timelined out at, but we didn't get to see it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. It really does.
I think given a lot of the production and storytelling things that they were probably working with, I can see why. I think this is probably the best version of what we could have gotten.
Yeah.
So for like the way that I've been thinking about the time jumps to sort of, which has sort of helped me frame it. Sorry, I'm just trying to kill my headphones. The way that I've been framing it is, given the context around the end of Game of Thrones and how reception to that was mixed in the extremes on either direction, they didn't know how reception to the show would be. And so I have a strong feeling that the showrunners would have been limited to, well, we know the first season of Game of Thrones really worked, so you have to hit the war by the end of season 1. Yeah. Do what you want with that, but you have to hit the war. And then you're like, okay, well, if we have to hit, like, war is going to happen. It's about to happen. Mm-hmm. It is inevitable from here. How do you fit all of the context in season 1?
You're literally answering Kartik Prabhu's question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was about, like, to answer that question. I mean, I don't know the nitty-gritty details of the Fire of Blood, so I don't think I am qualified to give you an answer of what was the a better stopping point.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, in terms of what Emma was talking about, because I think she's correct, they wanted to hit what they wanted in 10 is what they've been going for. So, but at the same time, I do think they covered too much. But I think that's because they limited themselves to 10 episodes. Had they allowed themselves 12 or 15, they don't have to do a normal 22, 24 episode season. Had they given themselves an extra couple of episodes, I think that would have helped it feel less condensed.
Yeah, I think this is where, one of those areas where decisions have to be made because of the realities of television. You're like, the general audience ain't us. We're obsessive about that. They only have a certain attention span and patience for things. And it is what it is. And we've discussed this on the podcast, how probably a lot of these decisions were made like regarding the time jumps of what to keep, what to cut, what do we want our endpoint to be. There is probably a lot of deliberation on this, a lot of cost benefit analysis of, like, for what we're trying to gain with this time jump, we will lose something with it.
Yeah.
And we have to weigh this out of what is the most important thing to get to where we need to be. And I do think the ending the season on drawing first blood in the war is the right call. I had some issues a little bit with Luke's death, but and how it landed, but I do think in general that was the right goal to get to. Now I should clarify for everybody. LittleWolfBird has not read the book, and I read part of it a while ago, so like honestly I've forgotten a lot of it. So like for us it was kind of, we were going into the show cold, and
I've listened to all the podcast coverage and stuff, but I don't know the details.
Yeah. So, yeah, like there were some definitely frustrating things about the time jumps. But I wish we had some more things that were lost. But
so
yeah.
I'm going to do you a favor. Here's my copy. I'm just going to hand it to you. Okay.
Mine off the shelf. I think Jess Britvek in the comments has a good point that Viserys dying would have been potentially a good finale.
I think it's not a terrible place.
It's in terms of like, I mean, it's not the what is it? Literally breathtaking, holy crap moment that that Jace had. Sorry, Luke. I can't keep him straight. But I think if you could, like the finale, like in the finale, have his death, and then look into like kind of like Rhaenyra's last moment, but kind of between Allison and Rhaenyra and like the impending doom that will come from it. I think could have been a decent ending as well.
That might have been a cool ending if they were dividing their season into a part 1 and part 2. Like that would be the finale of part 1. That could be kind of cool. Yeah.
And like, unlike Blue said earlier, she and I, especially myself, she and I critique the season a lot, but we loved it. But as Emma said, it was just, we want, again, the biggest problem is we want more.
We wanted more of Harwin Strong. Let's just put it bluntly.
Yes, absolutely.
We specifically, we wanted to see them babies getting made. So
yeah, right. Like I understand that Luke and Jace and Joff are a thing, but how? I'd like to see that myself. Those are two very attractive people.
And so that was my issue with Luke's death as being the finale. Like the big huzzah is not the right word, but the opposite of a huzzah. And
big womp womp.
Exactly. And I mean, like, I care, but I didn't care. This whole season, like especially 5 episodes dedicated to young Rhaenyra and Allison and them grow, them becoming watching them turn into who they are at the end of the season. I felt like it almost felt a little flat because I didn't have it seems like that they wanted us to really fall in love with Allison and Rhaenyra, and then it just kind of like, oh, but all of a sudden we also have to care about these kids, but there was no lead up to the kids. You gave us a ton of detail, a ton of backstory, a ton of OG Game of Thrones type storytelling for two of the characters. I mean, you had all the peripherals, Viserys and Daemon, etc., there as well, but then you didn't have any of the others. So I'm a little worried going to season 2 of like, am I gonna care about these people? Are they? I want more of the details to really care about them.
So for me, this hits like a cross between like a Shakespearean tragedy and a Shakespearean history, in that they all, the point is that these people die, and that a lot of them die needlessly, as opposed to necessarily like a deep emotional connection with a particular character, other than the leads. Thinking like Hamlet, for example, is sort of the only one we really get a huge amount of interiority for, except from Claudius when he's doing his do I regret killing the king? Not really. So for me, like that has been a sort of framing device for this season that has, I think, like mitigated that lack of connection slightly. So for me, it's not that these characters are dying. It's like the needless way in which they are dying, and the seeds that Allison and Rhaenyra sowed in their youth, effectively like coming home to roost, like that bitter sort of resentment, the failure to heal the breach between their friendship, has sown all these seeds, which are now coming to fruition, and that fruition is death. And so for me, and okay, I'm a simp for Shakespearean tragedies, so again, this probably explains why I'm just like, who would have thought the British person indoctrinated about British literature would find Shakespearean tragedies their fave? But yes, I think that's something that sort of struck me, and that I have rather enjoyed, and that sort of helped mitigate sort of the lack of connection with some of the characters, namely Harwin.
I understand where you're coming from with this idea about a lack of connection to the majority of the cast or the characters, but I actually think that might be by design, because let's face it, they're all pretty terrible people. They're all shades of awful, and
also that, yeah,
you have the Rhaenyra and Alicent early relationship between them. Really, so you can it's, I don't even think it's to characterize them per se. It's to make the tragedy of the fall of their relationship, their friendship, their trust in each other even more stinging. Like, I love this show, but there is not really a likable person on it. And it's a rare thing for me to like a show where there's no hero for me to root for. But I think that's by design. These are rich, entitled people who are worried about their image, killing each other and hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent people for that. And George has always been one to want to indict that mindset and that lifestyle anyway. So I think the lack of connection to the characters, it may be intentional, just so that we don't sympathize with them too much, because they are kind of terrible people.
I feel that they felt, if that was their intention, and I think you might be right on that. What was the point of showing us so much of young Allison Rhaenyra? Like, I agree, everybody's great, none of these characters are good, but we got to see why for these queens we don't for anybody else, and I'm like, I don't feel like they should be allowed to do one and not the other. It's unbalanced to me.
Yeah,
Allow me to respectfully disagree.
Perfect.
I think it's not always necessarily about being likable or agreeing with them. I can still find points of compassion for people, and they are, he is indicting a lot of stuff, and we are meant to see certain things and to look at them with a more critical eye. But there are also people that are a product of their class and their culture, and so are we. you know, and we're flawed. And like, that's the lens we look through. And I don't necessarily have to like them to care about them. There's some that I had, like we had a discussion last episode about love to hate and hate to love characters, you know, and there's some that I hate to love, but I kind of do. Maybe love is a too strong a word, but you know, I think that's what I like most about George's world is like, even terrible people, there's, you know, you can find their humanity in them. So
you can find that one redeeming quality, maybe.
Yeah. And it's kind of, oh, this person is so terrible, but yet I can relate to them in some ways. Like, what does that say about me? You know, like
even Gregor Clegane, we know that he's like plagued by migraines, and that's bound to be a lifestyle that's bound to be in existence. Very unpleasant. I feel bad for him for having migraines all the time. Screw him for everything else.
Yeah,
but like
he gets that one.
He gets the one for me.
I mean, he's arguably the most black character in a world of black, white, and gray characters, mostly gray characters. I don't think we can really argue that one, other than Shireen, is white. But Gregor is definitely black. But even then, like you said, his headaches, he gives us that one little piece that we can relate to. On maybe it's not migraines, maybe we have some other chronic illness, chronic something, but and that's what George has given us, is characters that we can dive into and lose ourselves in and find and dissect and come out with perhaps a greater understanding of ourselves.
Well spoken. I agree wholeheartedly. I like Kartik's question though. What is Otto's one redeeming quality? I have
He
a terrible answer.
supports his granddaughter.
He does.
Mm-hmm.
His love for Helena is his one redeeming quality.
We noticed some moments they were having in the show, and it's like, are you for real? Like, yeah. Is it Otto?
I have a terrible answer for this.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen him in a thong?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Anybody got a worse answer than that?
I don't have an answer. I don't know if that's better or worse.
Right. Like,
I mean, even if you framed Otto's best qualities as, you know, he's not particularly in it, seems like, for his own personal power. He's not like Littlefinger, but it's not exactly a virtue in the way he does it either. So it's kind of like, I kind of look at Otto as not really that extraordinary. He's kind of, pretty garden variety man of his class, in a lot of ways, and their culture. So
Otto is intelligent and shrewd, and to some degrees, whether we want to, we can argue about the succession laws of Westeros until we're blue in the face, and our world, our personal experience will color all of that conversation. But in the world he inhabits, he's something of a realist regarding the situation as well. Because a lot of people are going to turn against Rhaenyra simply based on the fact that she was born without a penis. It's the hard fact of the society they live in. And Otto, wanting to prevent war as best he can by trying to seat his grandson on the throne, I don't think, I can see that as a positive quality. I think he is trying to avert war because he thinks that if Rhaenyra takes the throne, there will absolutely be a civil war, as much of Westeros refuses to acknowledge her as the rightful queen.
He just has a little extra motivation with the fact that it's his grandchildren.
I mean, that doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt. But I'm digging as hard as I can to find that redeeming quality.
The qualities he has are not bad. It's how he uses them that makes them.
Yeah, I think that's I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I'm agreeing with you. It's just down to, he's smart. He's definitely shrewd and capable and crafty, but he goes about doing some pretty horrible things with those
I am remaining quiet on this because, without a doubt, you do not have to hand it to Otto Hightower. So,
yeah, Emma's still over there like, nope, got nothing.
I mean, like, honestly, like the what is considered virtues in Westeros is kind of fucked up. So it's like it's hard to say, like,
Right.
you know, what makes a good person, a good nobleman in Westeros is kind of fucked up. So, you know, how
there's this whole like Ned Stark. We're not going to go down the Ned Stark rabbit hole, but like, man, I can talk about Ned till I'm blue in the face, how great he is, and also how he's not nearly as great as you think he is. And I love that I can argue both sides of that. But, you know, let's turn our attention to something else. We've talked about the show kind of in a very broad, top-down sense. But ultimately, this show is not about the plot. It's about the characters. And there are some juicy ones in here. We don't get all the characterization that I would want for all of them, much as has been said already. But we got some really fantastically realized characters, especially in the Targaryen family tree. Like, I will never, ever think of Aegon II or Viserys I or the Rogue Prince the same ever again. Like, I always thought of Daemon as just this chaotic evil wild card. But he had so much humanity from the way Matt Smith played him in this show. And honestly, I don't know, it really just changed the way I will think of Daemon forever. Like, he's my favorite character from the show. Just based on the way that, and it's entirely down to Matt Smith.
Yeah,
I think. Paddy Considine with his portrayal of Viserys, I'm just like, okay, he's not my favorite character, but that's the best performance in the whole show, if you ask me.
Yeah, by far. And the way that Matt and Paddy play off of each other. Yeah. Really, the whole cast, it just, it elevates what is already a good story with good writing to a whole new level.
Yeah, Kartik is saying that in a sense Viserys is the goodest one in the show, and you're not wrong. I think Viserys is doing everything he can to try to keep everyone happy,
except his first wife, I suppose.
Right. Well,
I know it was episode 1, guys, but we do have to remember that.
Right about that,
a lot of things happened in between time, and it was very, very sad. But
you're right though. But the shadow of Emma hangs over Viserys, and we know that by the end of this season. Like, so you're not wrong about that.
He does show deep regret about it later on as well. That doesn't erase, regret doesn't erase the bad thing you did, but it does make me go, okay, you are a caring person who is reflecting on the bad things you've done and showing remorse. Yeah.
I think you phrased it really interestingly just a moment ago, where you said he did everything he could, which I think he did for everything that he could. We all know that there is a lot more that could have been done, but his limitation as a person, what it is really what it comes down to is I mean, yeah, what if he made this decision? But it wouldn't have been him. It wouldn't have been his decisions. And so I think I like that phrasing. It's he did everything he could.
At least on a personal level.
Yeah.
But as anybody who, you can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but he was trying to please all the people all the time, and that's literally impossible. And again, we're always going to have to predicate everything we say on it's Westeros, it's a monarchy, it's, it's the setting is what it is. He could have done more or different things if he had been so inclined. But he wanted everyone to live happily ever after together. he wants the storybook ending, which is a little bit of that early Sansa mindset, you know, and reality just doesn't work out that way, unfortunately. And I love the fact that he was so committed to that idea all the way up into the end, and people loved him. They really did. But the love for Viserys was not enough to keep everything from falling apart once he was gone.
I think probably of all the characters, I think Viserys's characterization is probably the strongest, and I would even argue that he went on a redemption arc in a certain sense. You know, we talked even from the first episode, Viserys is somebody who he loves the histories. He loves old Valyria. He builds the models. He has this dream of a great society and a kingdom, but he doesn't really at that point early on really want to put the work into making that happen. In fact, we get a line about the city is in decline since the death of his grandmother. So there's a negligence on his part early on, that he wants things to just be good and everyone to be happy, but he just doesn't want to really put himself in uncomfortable situations to do that. And then his arc ends with him hauling his ass out of his deathbed and no painkillers to stand up for his daughter and, you know, and her inheritance. So in some ways, like, I remember there was this one scene where I think it was Viserys was in the bathtub. I think it was Driftmark. And he was talking to Maester Orwell about, and he was, it was Lionel Strong maybe. And he was talking about legacy and being tested as a king. And in his mind, like, he's a peacetime king. So he's never been tested in battle. And that's the only way he can conceive of, like, oh man, I really wish I could have been tested like that. And it's like, Viserys, you are being tested. You know, you are being tested just in a different way. And he fails a lot along that way. But I think it's, you know, his most moving point is his last day alive. And he is making a plea to his family to end this conflict now, and for his sake, and for, you know, and like, especially when he went on he got up on that throne that last time, which was like, oh my God, like, just tears, hot, snotty tears, you know, to stand up for Rhaenyra one last time. And I think that is how he could, in some ways, redeem himself for Emma by standing up for her daughter.
I really did call him Matt Damon earlier, didn't I? His name is Matt Smith. He plays the character Damon.
I still stand by what I said in one of our episodes. It was episode 4 where they go to the brothel. I still stand by that. They should have had Matt Damon play the mummer, portraying David.
Oh God, that would have been so.
Like he played Loki in Thor Ragnarok.
Just a little acknowledgement that everybody is slipping up on his name.
Right. It's like everybody knows who we're
notices. Well, right. I mean, people catch it, but it doesn't register to us.
Yeah, if only there wasn't another dude called Matt Damon, this would be way easier. Who's like, I always think of Matt Damon from the Team America World Police. If you've seen that movie, Matt Damon is in it. There's a Matt Damon puppet who's only able to say his own name. Anyway, sidetrack. Matt Smith changed my whole freaking conception of Damon. And like, it meant every time he came on screen, I sat up a little straighter. I leaned forward because I'm like, he's about to go off like a time bomb. At some point, And everybody in the room knows it and is giving him the side eye, wondering when he's going to go do the next crazy Daemon thing. And it was so fun to watch people, and he knows it. He knows people know it. And he uses that to his advantage. But watching those few times where you see the gentle Daemon appear, like when he's helping Viserys and picks up the crown and helps him to the throne, or when he is gentle with his daughters through Baela. Is it Baela that he married? Laena. Baela's his daughter. Laena's Targaryens. There's too many of them. So, like, I always really enjoyed that because it made him such a, like, of course he could be terrible, but if he cares about someone, he can be really gentle as well. And I loved that character.
There was that moment in the finale when he goes to Rhaenyra's chambers and he doesn't enter and he sees her rocking on the ground, and then he goes to the beach and he does the agonizing sword in the sand moment. That's like, it's one of those moments that you're like, he did care, he does care, and he let himself be affected by his loss for just a moment. Now we all wish he could have actually comforted Rhaenyra, but that's not him.
That would require emotional maturity and a decision and a realization that violence is not, in fact, always the answer.
Stabbing the beach is always the better answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Better than stabbing.
Men will go to war rather than go to therapy, etc., etc.
Yes. Exactly.
I'm going to argue with Jess real quick. He does not have a heart of gold. I think he's got a heart of iron pyrites. If you hold it just in a right light, it looks like gold, but it ain't gold. I promise.
He's one of those characters that, yes, he does care, but he doesn't want anybody to know he actually cares. Like, you know.
Allison says Daemon's character seemed to change a bit when he was with Laena. Anyone agree? Thoughts as to why?
See here, yes.
Yes. Right. We'll start with yes and go from there.
Absolutely. No fucking clue.
I
10 fucking years. I don't.
Right.
Other than there is a genuine caring, I don't know. Other than she's hot, I don't know what made them work. What made Daemon change temporarily or microscopically or whatever for her, other than we get that dance scene with them at the wedding, like.
I would also posit that it wasn't necessarily her, because there were those glances with one of the serving men in the room, and there was a cut scene where Daemon was also, I think, snogging that guy at some point. So I do wonder how much is... So, like, my conception of Daemon's character is that he has a lot of feelings, and the construction of masculinity in Westeros does not give him any outlet for said feelings beyond violence and sex. It is in stepping away from that and then going to Pentos and potentially finding there are alternative versions of masculinity, and that maybe you don't have to be ultra stoic, no emotions, I just go around having sex and killing things. But again, as this points to the fact earlier of we're having to do a lot of guesswork right now because time skip. But that I think squares sort of Daemon's characterization for me.
What you were talking about made me consider a theory that Blue and I had, that we had canon that Laena knew about Laenor's sexuality, has always known, has been his number one supporter and everything. So so pending this being true, she's already exposed. She already is accepting of alternative non-normative Westerosi styles of living, styles of loving, so that she can be more accepting, more willing to let Damon just be Damon and create a healthy, loving home for him to be able to express himself that he never was before. And then when they go to Pentos, you're right, when they travel, they have even more exposure, which just continues to build upon what I would like to think that Lena contributed.
And I think it doesn't hurt that she's a dragon rider and rides Vagar, you know, like, so at that point. So he's probably already got some mad respect for her on that level, because he's very much into the Valerian thing. But, you know, also Lena's personality, like she's so pragmatic and no nonsense in some ways, but in a gentle way. So I think she is able to penetrate through his bullshit, like, and challenge him in some ways, but maybe not in the way his first wife challenged him, which was more abrasive. Oh my god, like, please don't hear that as me like justifying what he did to her, but but
I'm gonna clip that one sound bite and like play it over and over for everyone.
It was a rocky divorce. Like,
oh gosh, oh my.
Stephen, if that gets us more listens, hey, all press is good press.
right, there's no bad press, I got you.
But, you know, like, Lena's just she's such an indomitable spirit, you know, like, how could you not love her, honestly? Yeah. You know, so I don't know if I would call what their marriage was a marriage for deep romantic love, but it does seem like there was some warmth and respect there.
You guys, you know? A legend just wandered into the chat. A legend, a living legend. Thanks for popping by, buddy. And if you can only stay for a minute, that's great. But thanks for dropping by. It's always nice to see you.
Thank you for coming by.
If I may give my take on it for just a moment, it may also be that Damon is feeling personally defeated after all the Stepstone stuff, and you know because we see him shortly after the completion of the Stepstones campaign. Or, you know, they defeat the crab feeder, and then kind of the next time we really see him is married and living in Volantis or Pentos or whatever it is. I don't remember which city it was, but one of the free cities. He fought that war for years, and it ended up kind of coming to nothing for him because his brother showed up, and he's as far away from his brother as he can get, and he is feeling, I think, defeated by the fact that he cannot gain the personal glory that he wanted almost by any means. So he is just this dragon rider mercenary for the free cities, and he's accepted that he's past his prime, and he is just settled into the life of, okay, whatever, I guess this is what I do now. But with the death of Lena, and as well as you know, well, Laenor didn't die, but the disappearance of Laenor, and there's the Harwin Strong dying, so that I just feel like, if I may draw a parallel, I'm rambling, but I'm just going to draw this parallel. Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, kind of characterized as a bad guy, has a change of heart near the end of season 2, where he comes to accept that, you know, there's no shame in a life of humility and prosperity and just being happy. And he comes like, okay, yeah, I can accept that. But then he is given the opportunity to achieve the thing he has been trying to achieve. And Damon is put in the same type of situation near the end. So I feel like he's just kind of relaxed working at the tea shop, such as it is. But then the opportunity is presented to him to actually achieve that goal. And the good enough life goes out the window again. And I think that might be what we're seeing from Damon. That's my read, anyway.
I would also add, it's kind of implied that Damon and Lena's sort of one of their final conversations is Lena sort of saying to him, "You're more than this."
Mm-hmm.
And then she dies, and then it's like
a boss too. I mean, I hate it that she dies in Dragonfire, but can I just say, she went out on her terms. Like, it was one of the best steps in the whole season to me, because she got to choose. She said she wanted to die like a Valyrian dragon rider, and she did. Like, she at least was allowed to choose her own path at the end.
She got the largest motherfucking dragon in the world to give her mercy.
Command.
Yeah, and that dragon did not fucking want to do it. Like, he's like, like, he's like, you could see him like shaking it, like toddler being like, I don't want to. I don't. Oh, he's Jon Snow. I don't want it. I don't want it. Anyways.
Yeah. Oh, so sad.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, it was a really fun question, though. Thank you. Was it Allison who had that question?
Yes, it was Allison.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. Great question. But there's a lot of talk about Daemon. I really would like to talk about his brother again for just a moment, because I just don't think you can say enough good about what Paddy Considine pulled off. And it's one of those where it's like, episode 1, oh yeah, he's good. Episode 2, yeah, he's good. Like, I don't know that there's much I can point to in the throne room scene at the end with Matt Smith. Beautiful. And it might be the thing that made me go, dear God, give that man an Emmy. But the fact that he layered that character in all the way up, and you're like, you're a total fuck up, and you're being an idiot, but I can't help but continue to root for you because he wants what is best for everyone. And it's hard for me not to root for a person like that. Like, he might be the most likable person on the show.
Yeah, and especially, which is astonishing considering the way he started, like, and how he made the audience feel.
With the Emma thing, yes.
Right. The thing about Viserys is that this guy should never have been king. And I don't just mean that in the Great Council thing, and I mean that as in, this guy is ill-suited for the job. He should have been... he should have just been some country lord with a gaggle of children and just living a pretty normal, regular life. That's what he was meant for. Like, in some ways, I compared him before to like Eris Oakheart. He's not cut out for the White Cloak and what it's calling him to do. Like, he should have been a simple country knight or something, And that's kind of continuously why he fails so much. And that is that he's just a regular dude in a lot of ways. And again, how he comes to be tested, like truly tested. And he has his best, most noble moment towards the end of his life, or just right at the end of his life.
Yeah.
I do want to say something kind of controversial, I think.
Ooh.
That I wholeheartedly agree that the throne room scene is probably one of the best moments of the whole show. But knowing what we know on how that ended up going down in filming, and the fact that it was unscripted, it was totally, yes, it was all about Viserys and Paddy at that moment. But what made it so powerful is Matt Smith and Daemon coming in. And I think that's... So I think the credit actually needs to go to Matt Smith. But Paddy was but the focus is on Paddy. This is very interesting. Like, Matt Smith deserves the actual credit because he caused us to have the feels.
Mm-hmm.
But the two of them, and then once he stepped up, Paddy got it. They kept it going. They kept in character and stepped forward.
Right on. I don't think that's a controversial take at all, but it just goes to show you that the craft and art of acting is each, like, without Matt Smith embodying the mind of Daemon and saying, I need to help my brother, and Paddy instinctively, when somebody else went off script, staying in Viserys's broken old man mind and body, like that is just two actors at the top of their craft doing the thing they do.
Exactly.
And hats off to the casting director for making that happen, because that's really their job, is to find the right people to be able to pull that off.
And we know a lot of people were worried about Matt Smith coming in, not because they didn't like him or whatever. They were just worried about him in the role. They just wasn't sure if he was the right fit in this world. And I think he's proven everybody wrong, that he is the right person for it.
Yeah, I think that's just because his iteration of the Doctor was a little more silly, goofy than some of the other ones.
Yeah.
But I've seen him do other things and I was just like, no, he's good. Allison says the saddest part is that he probably would have been happy with that country life. Do you think he even wanted the Iron Throne? The short answer is no, I don't think he did. I think he wanted to paint his miniatures and have little tabletop army battles with them, like me and my nerdy friends would do. We'd paint up our armies and face off. That's what I think he would have been happy doing.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're offered something like that, you're supposed to want it. You're supposed to want a white. Every knight is supposed to want the white cloak, and you're a fool if you don't accept the crown. Especially when.
And when you're in Westeros, you see how the other people in Westeros react. If Rhaenys takes the crown and Viserys is not the king, people who are dissatisfied with Rhaenys are always going to be side-eyeing him as someone to throw their weight behind, somebody to try to elevate. So he may have felt he had to, just to promote the peace in the realm.
I also wonder how much we know in Fire and Blood that Jaehaerys was a raging misogynist. So I wonder how much of the Great Council was, well, you're going to win anyway because you're the guy. So here's the prophecy, my guy. I know you're big into dreams. So here's the information because you're going to win because you're a guy. So I wonder how much that had to play a role. And we see the way that Viserys views like having this knowledge of prophecy and having the dragon dream is he sees it as such a fundamental duty to being a Targaryen monarch that he uses that to impress upon Rhaenyra how important it is that she does her duty, both in the first episode and then in the fourth episode. And then by the end of the season, we've seen how Rhaenyra has really internalized that knowledge. So I wonder to what extent that plays a role in Viserys perceiving kingship as his duty, even though he doesn't want it.
That's probably an excellent point. That is an excellent point, because he is definitely a character that is a believer in dreams and prophecy, and that has definitely been a guiding principle in his life. And you're probably right on the money that it's a duty as a Targaryen. It's not a choice, because you have, in his mind, in his belief, there has to be this continuous chain of Targaryens till the end of the world, where this very important thing was going to happen. So he cannot be the one who fucks it up by not being part of the chain. And that's what he tries to impart to Rhaenyra too. You have to be part of the chain.
But do we feel like that he's trying to do that while at the same time keeping everyone happy? And it really is, as much as I can love Viserys for his intention, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, as the saying goes. And when he dies, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. Which actually leads me to probably my number one biggest complaint about the whole season. And I'm going to get it out of the way and then we'll move on. And that is it's the trope of saying the thing to the wrong person, not realizing that you're talking, to the wrong person. He thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra when he's really talking to Alicent, and he's talking about, to me, that's the one thing where I feel like, really, we're going to do it this way? But I feel like they also did that to take some of the blame off of Alicent's shoulders, to make to make the conflict between the blacks and the greens a little more gray, if you will.
So I have some contrary thoughts to this, to yours, Stephen, which is
away.
That so I was not happy at the end of season 8. I had a very, very similar view of really. However, the fact that we learn in episode 9 during the Greens Council, the guys had plans anyway. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter whether Allison heard this or not. If she was going to put up a fight about it, had a change of heart and decided, oh, my best friend from like 20 years ago is actually going to be queen, so I'm going to do that, they'd have just sidelined her and done what they were planning to do anyway.
Yeah.
It did not matter except to Allison that she heard that. That was important characterization only for Allison. Everything else would have happened anyway.
Yeah,
100%.
Okay,
to get her on board with her dad and everyone. That's the purpose it served. Right. Otherwise, everything I just said is
right.
I agree.
Again, I said it about an hour ago. This is why I have really smart people come on. Because now I feel even smarter. Like I hadn't thought of it that way.
Well, to be quite honest, like when we saw it the first time, we were just kind of like, really, but once we kind of talked it out and parsed through it, we started feeling a little bit differently.
Yeah, you saw it at the exact same moment I did.
Oh boy, that's so great.
If we could play D&D, you would get inspiration for that. I'm just saying.
That's a good one.
So, so that mistake, and of course, honestly, that is very realistic for a person who has their diminished mental capacity. They're hopped up on painkillers, and he's confused about a conversation that he had earlier. And Allison is the one on Team Green there. She has a conscience. She had already, and she does have her own code of honor, even if we disagree. And the last word Viserys had on it was that, or the last word even she had on it was, she told Rhaenyra, "You'll make a fine queen." She had already accepted that in her heart, that was the way things were going to be. I could see why people would roll their eyes, because I did it too, because of this immediate change, because Allison has never been one to believe in prophecy or any shit like that, but that wasn't the point. The point was that the course of Allison's life, so adult life, has been sacrifice and giving and being a good wife and care and mother to these children, and giving and giving and giving because it is her duty. And now finally, and she's living in Emma's shadow. She can never live up to the perfection that Emma was, even after all this. And then she hears something from Viserys that says, you know what? It wasn't all for nothing.
Yeah.
And that just flips a switch in her mind. I now have some reason to that my son should be on the throne. And I don't think she would have made that lightly. In fact, she was almost a little bit tormented by it when she went to her father and she says, I'm the only one that heard it. There's no other witnesses. She had no idea at that point that her father was already had his own plans.
It's go time.
So I mean, once we started talking it out that way, it's okay, that makes sense. All right.
You know what? Thank you very much for kind of squashing my one big problem with the season. There are other smaller problems, but that is a trope that I hate. It's right up there with the trope where somebody hears the first half of a conversation where it's everything bad, and then they walk away and they get praise heaped upon their name when they're not there. I hate that trope too.
So I think how we watched the season, with a week between each episode, does lead us to your conclusion, Stephen, where it's oh my God, we already know that there's this war coming. That's no spoiler, guys. If that you didn't know, there's this giant ass war coming. so we're like, oh my gosh, really? Like you said, it's coming down to she thought he was talking about her, like, but then we see the aftermath. Like Emma said, things were already in play.
Right.
Regardless if she got on board, as we said, that her hearing Viserys only got her to reluctantly go along with the council's plans, and with it could have gone very badly. I agree, Stephen. It could have gone very badly in terms of they could, if that was the direction they went, but because the council had. So I don't think what you hated about it prior to this discussion was invalid. I think it's a totally realistic way, but because we have this, the conclusion, or
no, you're right. The whole decision to crown Aegon II didn't come from that conversation.
Yes,
that was going to happen anyway.
Correct.
That conversation allowed Allison to get behind the plans of the council. And even then, she wasn't fully on board. She was sending people to grab up Aegon while her dad had somebody else out there trying to grab them up. And even in the moment, I didn't feel it was the worst mistaken identity info dump trope that I've ever seen by any means. He's doped up. You know, like that buys you a lot of forgiveness, at least in the context of making it happen. I still don't like the trope, but I actually can look at this situation and be like, this is not really what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plus, like, literally everyone she told that message to were like, "Oh yeah, sure, convenient."
Yeah, like no one believes
everyone
her.
Dismissed her and was like, "Oh, of course they did. Of course."
Yeah,
He said
that. They don't care. Yeah, they're just kind of like, sure, sweetie, and they don't care anyway. So,
just imagine if she had been able to talk to. If they'd been on speaking terms, like it looked like they were moving towards, if Allison had told Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra had been like, well, here's what he told me, and this makes sense. If they'd been able to talk, if they're girlmance, if they're opposite of a bromance, had actually
just
been
gals being pals,
exactly, been able to flourish and thrive.
Well, we call them what historians call good friends.
Favorites.
That's
favorites.
There we go.
Favorite friends. They live together.
Favored childhood companion.
Right. Guys, we've been talking for a little over an hour, and I would like to do the mid-roll now, if that's okay. And then we'll come back.
I actually am going to have to duck out if that is all right.
It is all right. Thank you for joining us for as much as you did.
Thank you for having me very much.
You really came through for me, like really last minute. So,
oh yeah, of course. I am just sitting here updating my files and transferring. Digital file organization, guys. Don't wait till it's too late. Do it now. This is what I'm learning.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So thank you, Stephen, so much for having us on. It was a pleasure talking to all of you.
For sure. We'll have you back again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Bye, guys.
Bye. Finally.
Finally.
Get that joke. Anyway, yeah. So we've been going for about an hour. We're gonna shake off all those vibes and get our head in a different space. This is a YouTube channel. I'm a YouTuber. I'm going to ask you to do those YouTube things. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already. Ring the little bell thing, like it'll notify you when we're going to go live. We go live every Sunday. Speaking of which, next Sunday, hopefully both John and Emma will be back to talk about the best Star Wars show in years, in a long, long time, Andor. If you are sleeping on Andor, don't. If you are a Star Wars fan and you skipped it because you've been left cold by some of the shows, it is fantastic. It's got its own vibe, different than any of the other Star Wars shows. If you're not a Star Wars fan, but you want to watch a show about how a fascist police state can push its citizenry to the point of revolution, it's a good show to watch too. If your problem with Star Wars is I don't want to see laser swords and space wizards. I have not heard the word Jedi or Force or seen a lightsaber one in 11 of the 12 episodes. So make of that what you will. It's jackbooted thugs doing jackbooted thug things and the people rising up to resist them. And it's really, really well written, very tense. Give Andor a shot if you want. But we'll be talking about that next week. It's a great show. The week after that, it will be December 4th. And given that my birthday is December the 5th, I am just taking that day to live stream and talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, just randomly. So don't know what that's going to be yet, but yeah. So next week, Andor, week after that, my birthday. The week after that, who knows? There's shows coming out soon that I want to talk about, including Willow. And there's a Wednesday Addams show that's coming out this week that I want to maybe talk about. We'll see. But that's all in the future. Also got to make sure we say thank you to our patrons. Thank you, patrons. Our Patreon Great Wyrms, the oldest, biggest, most badass dragons. Our ridiculous Ed Tollett, our alpha patron, as well as Lord John Bronsteen the Wise. And they are, of course, the greatest and most fearsome dragons of all time. But just below them in power are the elder dragons of the realm, including the Cloaked One of the Underworld, Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, Reflective Rambling, somebody called, let me see, Arch-Maester Emma. I think I pronounced that correctly. Kate, Mistress of the House of Books, Jared Kozal, the Doctor to Dragons, Lady Maura Lee of Starfall, and Lady Rita the Unbound. And just want to make sure I give a quick shout out to our newest patron, just joined this week, the lovely Allison. I believe she said her name is Kreutzberg. I heard her say it earlier today on a Zoom call, one time, and I'm trying to remember. I hope I got it right. But Allison, thank you for being a patron. And all patrons, thank you so much for keeping the lights on over here. You make it so I don't have to pay for StreamYard and Zoom and like all that stuff. Really appreciate it. Blue.
Yes.
You got a podcast. What are you guys doing next?
I do. Well, that was my podcasting partner there earlier. We have the Silent Sisters podcast. We're on Twitter at Sisters Silent, SilentSistersPodcast.com, which may or may not be updated for a little.
There's a link in the description to.
Okay, thank you.
To LittleWolfBird's link tree, to your Tumblr, as well as the SilentSistersPodcast.com. All those links are down there.
Yeah, we're mostly a Song of Ice and Fire podcast, but of course we're doing weekly Hot D coverage. We're now that the season is over, we're probably going to be going back to more book related content, but probably for the next episode we're going to do something a little light and easy as a palate cleanser, because the show was covering some very heavy topics, like very heavy. So we're probably going to do something about creativity and our because we're both fanfic writers, and get on some mental health stuff, because we did take a little bit of a hiatus for a while because we were just not in a good headspace. But now we're kind of like, we feel a little bit revived and reborn here, and just getting back into the week, or probably doing a podcast episode either once a month or twice a month. Thank you, Danny. Thank you. I hope you're feeling better.
It's not my place to say anything, but Danny was asking for good vibes yesterday. He was in the hospital yesterday, so everybody just send good love towards Danny McKay. We love you, buddy.
Yes. Thank you.
He's got the coolest Boston accent too.
Yes, he does.
You need to come and so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yes, Silent Sisters podcast is wicked good. Emma, you do stuff occasionally sometimes.
Occasionally, sometimes, being the operative words. So I'm on the more Game of Thronesy topic today. So I do have a blog. It hasn't been touched for a while at redmiceatplay.wordpress.com.
Link in the description.
Thank you. There is a essay on there recently about that I wrote in the so many 4 a.m.s in the week after the first episode of House of the Dragon, talking about sort of the Dragon Dream drop and relating it to really weird behavior from basically every Targ that was ever in a particularly bad winter, based on what we know from Fire and Blood. So that's fun. It does have some spoilers for what actually happens in House of the Dragon. So if you're not a Fire and Blood person, or you don't want information from Fire and Blood for that, then maybe don't read the essay for a little while. Or unless you can rely on having a terrible memory.
So what you're saying is I can read it.
Yeah. So that's a Game of Thronesy type thing that I do. Otherwise, I'm big into D&D at the moment, and I'm hoping to write and publish an adventure that if people also like D&D, as in the game, not David and Dan, the game, then I'll be on DM's Guild with that publication, hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's like Emma and I, we met each other through the Game of Thrones fan community. But over the last, 2 years, we barely talk about that stuff. It is all D&D all the time for us. We're both huge D&D enthusiasts. I'm an old school one. Emma is one that I grew out of my own backyard, but man, is she already doing great stuff. Yeah.
To clarify, I was just making the distinction between Dungeons and Dragons as D&D because my accent doesn't... It wasn't necessarily shots fired at David and Dan. You can interpret it that way if you want to.
I will fire the shots. I will fire the shots on your behalf.
Thank you. But yes.
But yeah, you actually, just as a final side note, you did write your first adventure recently, which I had the honor and privilege to help playtest, and it was a lot of fun. I really did thoroughly enjoy it. So look for Emma's stuff on DM's Guild coming soon.
Yep, we'll keep you all posted.
I think that's enough of a mid-roll. Okay, actually there is one more thing. If you would like to join our Slack group, which is rather like our Discord server, it's open to everyone as long as you're not an asshole. And all you got to do to get in is just send me an email to we3dragons@gmail.com, and I'll send you an invite. And you can chat with not only me, both of these ladies are frequent contributors there as well, but so are people that you'll see in the chat, like Kartik and Danny McKay and Kate and Allison and Voice of Geekdom Dan. Jess is in there. A lot of these folks are daily, it's just our little corner of the internet. Come join us if you want. Unless you're an asshole, then don't bother. We don't want you. Okay, I think that's it for the mid-roll. So, back to House of the Dragon. I kind of had saved our two, I guess we'll call them main characters, for after the break so that I could make sure we got other stuff talked about, because let's face it, this is the Rhaenyra and Allison show.
Mm-hmm.
Other characters get their moment in the spotlight, but this is really about these two women and the different way they respond to the societal pressures placed on them. And I think that both actors for both characters were fantastic. I especially liked Millie. I can't think of her last name. I'm sorry?
Millie Alcock?
Yeah, the young Rhaenyra.
Yes.
I loved her so much that when Emma Darcy came on, I was like, okay, Emma Darcy's cool. They're cool, but I missed Millie in that moment. sorry, Emma, if you're watching this. Emma Darcy, if you're watching this, you were fantastic. I loved you. But having built up a real love for the Rhaenyra character with Millie Alcock as that character, it was jarring for me to have to just go straight to another actor in that role. Again, Emma Darcy, fantastic job. They were great. But it hurt my heart when Millie was gone. Not gonna lie.
No.
Any feelings in general about Rhaenyra before I just go off the deep end?
I keep talking first, so I don't know if you want to go, Blue.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, I absolutely adore Rhaenyra. The acting from both Millie and Emma for Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra's relationship with Allison and how that was portrayed, specifically like the breakdown of it, and the way their sort of friendship sort of fell apart. Yeah, I have so much admiration for that character, and I think, yeah, I just love this show. You know, it's just so good.
It is really good. I can't wait till you start digging into the color symbolism. That's a joke. That's a joke for all you old school Emma followers.
Old school me. Yeah.
I have definitely read essays about the way George uses colors and stuff.
I can give you the color symbolism. I have it. It's
I bet you do.
Spoilery, but I've got it.
We'll say that for part 2 next time.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, from my understanding, just a little bit of a, from hearing about what's in the books, that there is an age difference between Allison and Rhaenyra, and it's like, and there is really, Allison is there to be the wicked stepmother in the books. I think that storyline shit, and I like this one better. Okay, like
hard agree.
Wicked stepmother has been done to death. I want to see girl friendships and
messy girl breakups and
but you know what? This is like so I mean, this is so relatable in so many ways, because like when we meet these girls, they're in that young teen years, and like girl friendships are very emotionally intense, especially when they're that bonded at that age, like 12, 13, 14, that's why, like, unfortunately, a lot of girls get characterized as so much drama at that age, but they are, very tightly emotionally bonded. And like one of the ways that girls bond like this, and you'll see it with Sansa and Jane Poole in the books, is that they tell each other secrets and they confide in each other, and that builds trust. And so I love seeing that in their story, and how much it hurts when Allison when Viserys announced he's going to marry Alicent, and it is, it's so heartbreaking, because and it's what's so tragic too is you see all these, if these girls were left, and women were left to their own devices, they would make up and they would restore their friendship, but how much outside interference comes between them. And I am sorry, but there is no heterosexual explanation for keeping a page from that book for 20 fucking years. So, and I'm loving that part of the story too. So
complete with like fold marks to imply it's been opened and closed like a lot over those 20 years. I was just like, that's
oh my God.
Super gay, Allison.
The
that's
yearning, the yearning. I love it. Yeah, so it's just, that is the better story. That is the better story. Sorry, George, this is the better story.
No, you're not wrong. I totally agree. Like, the wicked stepmother trope can still work. It can. But you're right. It is kind of tired at this point. And making her the friend, and then it's the friendship that falls from grace, is so much more moving because of the investment they have with each other. Like, it's heartbreaking to think about two people who were as close as they were in their youth being so divided by the end of the season. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And Jess says she likes that they made all the Greens more sympathetic. in the book Fire and Blood, they are much less sympathetic. I feel like it's pretty much most people. I've heard more people support the blacks way more than the Greens as far as reading the book Fire and Blood. But the TV show, and there was a lot closer to 50-50. I feel like the blacks probably still have a little bit of an edge on the Greens, and I still feel like if I had to choose one or the other, forced to choose, no third option, I would still pick the blacks, but I'm like way closer to being swayed to the Greens than I ever thought possible. Were you a black before the story? Still a black now? Any change in your loyalties?
I'm sorry, go on, Blue.
Either one.
No, I mean, I'm team Rhaenyra, on principle. But I am so, like, my interest lies in Allison. I'm very, very interested in Allison's journey through this rather than Team Green. All as a whole. It's complicated.
Again, holding your feet to the fire, forcing you to pick one or the other. Like
one or the other? Okay, well, definitely Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the same. Like I was a supporter of the blacks going into this, and I haven't changed in that opinion. I do say, like, as Jess said, that the fact that all of the Greens are more sympathetic in their origins, we'll see.
For Kristen Cole.
Yes.
I need to write a whole book about fuck that guy.
So I wonder if... So for me, I guess I'm less mean sympathetic and more mean relatable. Because everyone knows a Kristen Cole. Like, he's... everyone knows one. I'm sorry. If you don't know one, you might be him. Soz.
That's tough, man.
But like, everyone knows a guy who just got way too invested and got rejected, and then decided that that was her problem and he would make it his life's mission to be a dick about it. And it's like, well, that's bad. Don't do that. But yeah,
he took it to some, I mean, his, like, we had a whole discussion about this, but his decision to murder Sir Joffrey Lonmouth was hate towards Rhaenyra. I don't buy that was like he interpreted as Joffrey Lonmouth like threatening him in some way or to expose him, but that was okay. How can I say this succinctly? He's already very, very unhappy with the whole polycule situation, and he has every right to say, you know what, that's not for me, and that would be completely fine. But he is approached by Joffrey Lonmouth and saying, hey, like, who's unknowing, and just like, hey, you know what, we can be on the same team here. We'll help each other, protect each other. It'll be okay, because this is sadly like the best Joffrey and Laenor could hope for in this situation. It's still crumbs of legitimacy, but it's the best they could hope for. And the reason why I think he targets Joffrey is that like, he makes a very I don't think it was impulsive. I think it was a very conscious decision, because he hesitates and there's time to think about it, because Joffrey is across the room by the time he attacks him. Is that I I'm going to make sure that whenever your husband looks at you, he sees that your lover killed his. And I'm going to do it on your wedding day. And so you will have no joy ever again from this.
Okay, so remember earlier when I said my biggest problem with the season was that sort of like trope of mistaken identity? Actually, my biggest problem is Kristen Cole murdering someone at a wedding and like having zero repercussions from that. And then like maybe even more so than when he murdered the one, oh God. People are going to get mad at me because I can't remember the name of the old man. Beesbury, Lord Beesbury.
Right. Stephen?
Yes.
He's a cop.
But I feel like but he's killing highborn. Like he killed a highborn lord.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
In Beesbury. He killed, Joffrey Lonmouth. It was still a Sir Joffrey Lonmouth. He still killed a member of the nobility. Mm-hmm. So that's like a cop shooting a rich white person.
But he's an elite cop, okay? He's and that like we're talking.
Okay, what my white privilege signing through one more time? Okay.
No, I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying that that's an embarrassment on the institution, and when that happens, the institution doesn't put that individual out for accountability. They circle the wagons around the individual to protect the reputation of the institution.
Right.
And they could kind of probably, I don't know what Joffrey's Lonmouth's family situation was, but it was probably a situation where they could sweep it under the rug, maybe quietly give a little restitution to the family and move on. Because I mean, you can't get into, the family can't really get into why Joffrey was murdered unless you kind of expose things that are not allowed.
Exposed by it. Rhaenyra would be exposed by it.
A lot of stuff. So it like, and that's how he got away with it. And and it's awful because there's one moment, I think it's in the episode where Rhaenyra has just given birth to baby Joffrey, and they go, and of course, like they have to go taking the baby to Queen Alicent so she can look at it. Horrible.
Real but Alicent, by the way. On that.
There was a moment where they're leaving. They're leaving the room, and Kristen Cole is guarding the room, and it's like it's a shot where he's in the distance, and Laenor looks back at him, and he just kind of like, and Kristen Cole just does one of these like, "Sup, bro," and it's like, oh my God, like what a fucking asshole, like, yeah.
What an actor.
But like I will also say, sorry to jump in, but he also clearly has a reputation amongst the other Kingsguard as well, because in the scene where Alicent goes for Rhaenyra, Daemon circles to intercept Cole, as do two other Kingsguard. So there's only Harold Westerling going in to actually stop the fight between Alicent and Rhaenyra, and everyone else is stopping Kristen Cole getting into that fight because they know what he's like and what he'll do. And I think afterwards they like characterized him as like just being this thug, and that's what he's there for. So yeah, I think Rhaenyra, you chose wrong there. Maybe you should have gone with one of the other Tourney Knights.
Well, hey, I'll be fair about that. There weren't really any red flags before that. Before that, he seemed to be a really cool guy. He wasn't okay, like he wasn't creeping on her in some ways like Daemon was in her younger years. He would listen to her, he joked with her. He just seemed like a cool guy that understood her and that she could talk to. Like,
again, everyone knows this guy.
Right. Well, you know what? We all have that one that was in our "What was I thinking" file. Like
some of us have more than one.
Yeah.
I don't know who I think you're talking about.
But that's the thing, Kartik. He wasn't dumped. She was like actually
he asked
happy.
For the impossible. He asked for the impossible.
He was asking a lot.
She was trying to explain to him, I can't do this. Here's the prophecy, my guy. I can't. Like, I know I whinge a lot, but that's because everyone whinges about their life in some capacity, and
Yeah.
you're around me most of the time. Like, but he took it as a rejection
well,
he took it real personal.
He rejected her and pretty much slut shamed her, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, excuse me, weren't you involved in this relationship too? It's like, you know, why is only one person here the slut? So, like,
anyway, I feel like we've taken
it's the gender norms, like,
yeah.
And it's one of those things that the show does really well is criticize the gender norms. I will say, like, Kristen Cole, the actor, I'm so impressed because I really did like him early on, and I'm like, he's a good-looking man too. Let's be real, like, that's a good-looking man. But by the end of the show, I'm like, I look at him and I'm like, because he's just so disgusting to me on a personal level. But that just tells me that the actor did a great job.
Yeah.
That he made me like him first and then hate him later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And,
See,
you know,
Jess gets it. If pretty, white, evil, all pretty people are good guys. That's why orcs are ugly. So that's how you know they're the bad guys. I think Guilty Undertaker has kind of nailed it. Rhaenyra knew that it was a one-night stand, but
I disagree. I disagree. Because honestly, like, her reaction the next morning was, when she saw him, was like all smiles, and she's like, come in. Like, she was like acting like, you know, that was something really special.
Maybe one-night stand isn't the right term, but like long-term booty call. She knew.
I think she really liked him. I think she really liked him a lot. And
but I also knew it was never going to be marriage, exclusivity.
Right. And honestly, he should have too. You know, but
you became a knight of the Kingsguard. Literally no way this works.
Right.
Literally no way this works.
It's really about two people, or really like people trying to defy their cultural norms about what is allowed in sexuality. But, like, you know, as Laenor and Joffrey have a non-normative relationship, you know, sex outside of marriage for a woman is non-normative too. And, you know, Rhaenyra is someone who in lots of ways is trying to break free of a lot of, you know, gendered restrictions on her. And to her, like, you know, having a relationship with Kristen Cole, even if it's not forever, even if it's not going to end in marriage, I think she really did like him and care about him. And she wanted to continue their relationship. And she thought she had found the perfect solution to do that. But yeah, he didn't see it that way. It was kind of all or nothing for him. I mean, and he had every right to back out of the relationship if it was not for him, and that was totally fine. But what he was demanding of her was to give up everything, to not just her crown, but to basically destroy her reputation, become estranged from her family, and live in exile and completely dependent on him. You know, so it would definitely shift.
Yeah. Also, seem to forget she has a dragon. Those are not cheap. Like, you cannot maintain those on a mercenary salary. They need like 3 cows a day. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with their relationship not ending in marriage or not being forever. They can just be two people who enjoy each other's company and are giving each other pleasure, which is forbidden, you know, outside of marriage in Westeros. So, yeah.
Just sort of circling things back to Allison and Rhaenyra, and a thing that I don't know if the show did it intentionally or George did it intentionally or what, but I really love sort of the parallels and sort of mirroring in the sort of sex lives of Alicent and Rhaenyra as sort of equal opposites. Like, they each, like, in the relationship with the Targaryens, they each marry a brother, but Alicent this is all duty, and she has a terrible sex life. And for Rhaenyra, yes, it's creepy and weird because uncle grooming. But later in life, that is something that Rhaenyra wants, and obviously bad, and weird. But there is the dynamic of at least, you know, Rhaenyra is seeking a relationship with Daemon, whereas Alicent was just sort of thrust at Viserys for her family's power. And then you have even a relationship with the Strongs, where, you know, Rhaenyra pursues and is pursued by Harwin, and they seem to have this genuinely loving and caring relationship with kids that they both adore, in this like really like seemingly like quite wholesome like polycule situation and polycule arrangement that sort of allows everyone to keep up appearances. If you squint. Whereas like Alicent, obviously she has that really horrible coercive sort of arrangement with Larys, who's sort of the brother. Then you even have like, I know, so many issues with that, but in terms of this, the sort of parallels between them. And then you have Criston Cole, where Cole has sort of projected all of this nonsense onto Rhaenyra in terms around like their sexual encounter, and then has immediately projected like the exact opposite onto Alicent of your light and innocence and purity, and I'm going to defend you because like you're the sort of virgin and she's the sort of not, in that sort of Madonna word I don't like to say, complex, sort of like putting women up on pedestals versus like denigrating them for whether or not they have sex. So I think like the fact that they have kept those like so tightly interlinked in the show is a great parallel between sort of Alicent's situation and why she is potentially not in a like, but just like her attitudes towards the way you are a happy person, the way what your purpose in life is, and it's all duty and no pleasure. And then compared to Rhaenyra, who's trying to marry the two just in a very different way. I was going to say, what was I going to, totally lost my train of thought there for a second, but yes, 100%. And now I remember what I wanted to say. It's, you can really tell there was female writers, female directors, and intimacy coordinators on set. You know, because with each of these scenes, like it is astonishing the difference it makes in the way things kind of come across. I 100% agree that that is a very important part of their story, of their relationship to each woman's relationship to sexuality and relations with her either lovers or husbands. And of course, you know, we see with Alicent that we have never seen her talk about men in a romantic way ever, you know, or even, I mean, the closest she comes is when Rhaenyra has just gotten back from her tour where she's kind of like interviewing potential suitors, and Alicent thinks that like, oh, wow, that kind of sounds romantic. It's like you have all these choices, because of course she never had a choice. Like no one ever gave her that choice. So this sounds like, in a way, wow, Rhaenyra, it's like you hit the lottery. You know, you get all this choice and you're still.
She never had that choice. And it was never like, because she was not even an adult when she was sort of starting to be offered up to Viserys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and so sad. But you know, Alicent is someone we also never really see like expressing her sexuality in the same way Rhaenyra does, in physical intimacy. It's I personally think that that yes, I do think that Alicent has very sapphic feelings for Rhaenyra, but I think when Rhaenyra did get back to King's Landing after her tour, and they sit down again and they're holding hands, it's like, okay, we're married to men, or we're going to be married to men, both of us, and we'll have our duties, but the real intimacy is with us. Like, this is where it's at. Like, this is the real love here. And of course, like when she finds out later that, from Kristen Cole spilling the beans, that not only did Rhaenyra, it wasn't just a youthful situation where she just got swept away and made a bad decision. She chose Kristen Cole and pursued him. She chose a man and pursued a man. And that, I think, is why her reaction in the Godswood seems so disproportionately hurt. Like, it looks like her heart was ripped out. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, that's just like my shipper goggles on, and I'm looking through that. But what was the original question? What were we talking about?
You wouldn't be able to set sail on that ship unless there was an ocean beneath you. So, there's...
that might be one of the, I'm slightly disappointed in. I really hoped we would get a true budding romance between them. Mm. We got subtext, but I wanted, text.
Yeah.
The subtext was enough for me to feel for them, what might have been, because I think they both could have developed romantic or sexual interest in each other. But by the time that Rhaenyra is getting old enough to really sort of self-actualize her sexuality, Allison is married to her dad, and it's just... It takes on a whole new level of creepy. There is probably some corner of the internet where you can find pornography like that, but don't go looking for it unless it's really what you want. But I'm just saying, I really would have appreciated a romantic or sexual interest being a little more implicit between the two of them.
Yeah. I agree. We're 2022. We don't need to play coy with that stuff. On the other hand, to be fair, I have seen a lot of people, on the Twitters, who have said, I relate to this. I relate to why Allison got so upset and why she couldn't name what she's feeling. Mm-hmm. Because that was me growing up when I had romantic feelings for girls, but I didn't understand what it was. Mm-hmm. And I got mad at a lot of friends, and friendships ended. And I didn't understand why at the time, but now I do. So, I mean, there is, I guess, an element of realism with that.
Yeah. I will also say, with Allison, she is so focused, has been taught to do her duty and is dedicated to that I think the less explicit side of things is a part of her characterization. As Blue said, is she doesn't have the words to name what she is feeling. She doesn't, the concept of having a same-sex relationship or having a relationship with another woman is just not there for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she's religious too.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it,
So yeah, I just I personally read it as part of her characterization as being someone who sort of can't express those sort of full gay feelings.
I wanted the full gay show. I guess that's just but that's not what they were doing. And I can always appreciate the subtle approach too. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change the fact that I would like to have seen, as you say, it's 2022. You don't have to be sly about it.
I'm hoping this gets rectified with some sort of characters that are later on who are they are women who are definitely groups of women who are each other's favorites. So that's definitely, please give me those women, please. They are so cool. And I love them so much. So yeah.
Just give me one happy gay couple. And don't kill one of them off or anything like that. Let me have one happy gay couple. That would be great.
You're saying Carl and Laenor going around killing people in the stepstone isn't
okay, but they're all they got to be happy and then leave the show.
Mm-hmm. You can be happy as long as you sacrifice any and all attachments to your other family, to like your biological family.
Right. Like,
it's just like,
obviously he's writing this. George is writing a lot of this of the indictment as an indictment of these ideas. So like having a happy gay couple in this story probably doesn't fit the theme, honestly. It's what we want to see, but like, since when is this show giving us what we would want to happen? You know, there's people at each other's throats, and I'm going to prove a point by breaking through the floor, and a bunch of people are going to die, and I'm on the good guy's side.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I guess the point is sometimes it's like in this world, it's always going to be like you don't get perfect solutions. You don't get that legitimacy of being able to get married and live happily ever after. But somebody got to escape the Game of Thrones. Somebody got to get on that ship to Essos and go create their own destiny. And that's something. And
mm-hmm.
you know,
yeah,
I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, again, it would be nice to see the happy couple, but maybe the best you can hope for, maybe the happy couple is the one that got the hell out.
You can be a couple of sellswords and Essos and, you know, earn your way that way. And then nobody cares. You know, nobody cares that you're a couple.
Has a good point here, too. I don't know that there are any happy straight couples either. You're not wrong. Okay. They're pretty all terrible people. We're down to less than 15 minutes left in mm-hmm. tonight's live stream. So we're going to take this opportunity to make sure we hit anything we haven't talked about. And I have to mention, is it Laris Strong? That is a character that I cannot wait to hate and be creeped out by even more next season.
Yeah.
Like, and I love that they gave him the foot thing. It made me laugh so hard. If you are into feet, if that is your thing, by all means, I am not here to shame anyone. We all have those things we like, but it just made me laugh so hard to watch that awkward scene. But at the same time, I'm like, it broke my heart for Allison that I'm the queen, but I still have to, she is forced to offer up some part of her sexuality in order to achieve what she wants. Like, even as the queen, she still has to answer to men.
I think that
her station.
That is the part in that scene that is, I think it feels the most accurate and truthful, because even though she is the most powerful, one of the most powerful women in the realm, she is still at someone else's mercy, and she is still like treated a certain way, and she has no one she can go to and about this, because even her biggest protector, Kristen Cole, she can't tell him about this, because that would kick her right off the pedestal. Yeah, because for being alone in her room with this guy.
100%.
I will say, okay, let me preface this. I did not like how the other elements of the scene came together. And here's why. We have a disabled guy who is showing he has a sexuality, okay? As a disabled person, he is allowed to be a sexual being, and it's not gross, funny, or, an object of mockery. Okay. The foot fetish thing, well, let me back up. It's not something that seems like they're tying the foot fetish thing to his own disability, and that feels really gross, because it's not exactly something that would realistically happen, even though I will say there is nothing wrong with having a foot fetish. It is harmless. Shame. It is a harmless thing, and I felt like that was kind of like associating a very harmless fetish with like his wrongdoing and psychopathy in that scene too, but also associating it with his disability in a very creepy way. And this is a scene of sexual violence. And I'm sorry, Stephen, I just need to push back just a teeny tiny bit. That is not a time to be laughing
Maybe it was me laughing due to being uncomfortable.
That's exactly it. I think they included the foot fetish scene in a way because I know one of the show writers, Sarah Hess, had said in an interview that their goal was not to show explicit sexual violence on the screen. Okay. And I think I'm going to be a bit judgy. I think their definition of sexual violence is very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, yes, they wanted to put some distance between Allison and Laris and do it in this way where he's sitting across from her and they are not physically touching. But the introduction of the foot fetish aspect of his sexuality feels like it is trying to make the audience laugh uncomfortably in a scene of sexual violence. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the right tone, in my opinion, to strike for the writers.
I'm going to agree with you. Like it was extremely creepy.
It was, and
you're right. Like I've joked about the foot thing a lot of times, and maybe I shouldn't.
I'm not shaming you for joking about it.
Maybe I shouldn't be. Like, but at the same time, like people are into all kinds of things. If a foot fetish is a pretty mild thing to be into, as far as I'm concerned, it's not my thing. But like, hey, you do you, boo. Like, all human body parts can be sexy to someone.
Yeah.
And more power to you. And I will say, she's got pretty feet too. I thought, like, oh, as feet go, those are nice ones. But I just like Laris was so creepy, and I do kind of want to put like it's the Ephialtes from 300 thing. Oh, the hunched over, crippled, ugly one, bad guy, and I'm like, I was talking to some brand new players of D&D earlier today. A couple of them are in the chat right now. We're gonna but I was like, in my game world, just because you're an orc doesn't mean you're a bad guy. Like, there are good guy orcs. Maybe they are physically unattractive to you, but that doesn't make them bad guys. It's not so black and white. And I wish that Laris, because Laris in the book, we don't know much of anything about him. It could have been done so many different ways, but we have the evil mutant, if you will, or the crippled person who's mad at society. It's a tired trope as well.
I have so many thoughts about this. Let me put them in order. Okay, so specifically around Laris and his characterization, he 100% is sort of being coded as villainous, is doing villainous things. Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with what Blue was saying around, linking the fetish to his disability is creepy and weird and a bit ableist, and that's bad. I will also point out that the reason why I am sort of comfortable going hard at them for their ableism in this scene is because earlier in the season, they basically said they put Grayscale, gave Cragass Crabfeeder Grayscale to make him look creepy. So clearly, while I think they've done an excellent job deconstructing structures of patriarchy and the myriad ways that affects women as individuals, women's relationship with men, women's relationship with other women. They've done a marvelous job with that. They have done not great job on other aspects, specifically around ableism.
Ableism. Big deal.
Exactly. And I think that we should criticize them with that from a place of love, to hope that they do better next season. Maybe if they've got more time with the characters, then that will help. But at the same time, the fact that they have just easily gone to, disabled is, bad, effectively. Suboptimal, to say the least. So that's my thought on that.
It kind of can be reinforcing a pretty negative stereotype.
100%,
yeah, we had a guest on in our podcast, the Immaculate Bastard, and she's has a master's degree in disability studies. So of course we wanted her on to talk about this, and specifically about the crab feeder too, because it does seem like the only reason his grayscale or relevance his grayscale has is just to make him more monstrous. And she introduced us to the term enfreakment. And I think that this is definitely like how they presented Laris and his sexuality as a form of infrequent, to make it just amplify how bad he is, and by marrying it to his disability as being this gross, disgusting thing.
Something to laugh at him for.
Something to laugh at him for,
something
to like look at as, and that is like a lot of ableist attitudes about people with disabilities, their sexuality. It's like they're not even allowed to have a sexuality, or they're infantilized, or they're looked at as gross and disgusting.
Yeah, I think I would have a lot less problem with it if Laris had his body difference and the society villainized him for it. And some do, but he's being villainized by the plot, by the story.
Yes.
But he is being characterized as villainous, not treated as villainous by a superstitious, closed-minded society. I'd be way better with the idea of him being treated that way by other characters in the story, rather than him being, if they assumed he was the way that he's written without being written that way. They assume the worst about him because he's cursed, because he's got a clubfoot. The gods have marked him. That's a thing that they thought.
So I have issues with Laris and the way his disability specifically has been characterized. Not to say that you can't have villains who are evil as shit and disabled like that. Obviously, we all contain myriads. I'm just saying,
did you ever
maybe don't link.
It was just a weird linking all these elements together in one scene in a way that just felt very icky.
Which is why I wanted to make sure we touched on this. We got only a couple of minutes left.
Okay, I was just going to go ahead, Emma.
Emma's got something.
I was finishing. I had a separate set of thoughts around sort of Allison and the sort of coerciveness of that scene. It is a scene of sort of, to me, sexual coercion and sexual violence, and we always have to take this scene under the consideration of, he is saying, I kinslayed on your orders. He is laying those murders at her feet to hook her so that she cannot get away, and she has nowhere to turn. And I think this in general, and this is part of the good bit of this scene, and is mirrored all the way throughout the series, of it doesn't matter how much nominal or actual institutional power a woman has. That does not transfer to the domestic sphere in any way, shape, or form. There is no, you cannot, it is impossible for women to be liberated solely by acquiring power. That is not feasible, because we see, like, Allison is nominally the most important woman in the realm. She is the queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and yet she is beholden to her father, she's beholden to her husband, she's beholden to her sons, she's cleaning up her son's messes, like by messes I mean violent sexual acts. She is like being coerced into these sexual acts herself. Rhaenyra is placing herself to be queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and she is still subject to her husband's violence within the domestic sphere. I think they're making a very, very, very strong case for against this sort of what we've sort of seen feminism be in the past 30 years, which is feminism is women going to work and becoming CEOs. And it's like, well, there's a lot more to it than that, guys. and I think the show has done quite a good job in terms of those. That was me trying to get that out as quickly as possible.
No, I mean, that is incredibly real, because you can see, let's say, women like Rihanna, who's like the top of her game, like one of the biggest pop stars in the world, one of the wealthiest women in the world, who's built an empire of not just her music, but, her lingerie line, her makeup line. I mean, she is she's as A-list as it gets. She can still be subject to domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it's like
in 21st century.
In 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much worse for people living in a medieval fantasy? Yeah. Any other final thoughts, Blue or Emma?
Blue had one bit that I interrupted with.
Oh, no. The only thing I will say about Laris is I think he's actually the weakest written character in a lot of ways.
He is kind of one-dimensional, isn't he?
Yeah. It's like, and that's a frustrating part, is because he could actually be incredibly interesting. It's like he's the definition of that escalated quickly when he just has his brother and father murdered and seemingly not batting an eye. I mean, of course, I can concede that there are sometimes people who are born with something very broken inside them, and he could just be a psychopath, and he just does not care about anyone in a real way. He doesn't empathize with anyone, and that's why he could just do that. But I don't know, that just seems to beg a backstory here on how strong and their dynamics of how did he end up this way? Because he gives on that long monologue to Allison about how children are a burden, and that he once you just cut those heartstrings, you can have the ultimate freedom for morality and ethics, and that's wow, because that character thinks in such an extreme way. I want to know why, but we never get that. And
it feels like they just their answer is, he's a sociopath.
Yeah, and I don't like that. I don't like that.
I don't either. It's not a very compelling story.
We'll see if his secret green seer thing, Joe Magician has that theory. So
right.
If
we
that
were literally
turns out
talking
to be true,
about that in the chat just a minute ago.
Yeah, I just thought I'd give it a name drop on air.
Is Larissa Green Seer? And my response is literally just to go ask Joe Magician, because he really does have an excellent video about that idea. If there is if one of the mods could find the link to that video and drop it in the chat, that would be great. I could probably do it too. It's just I don't have it up. I'm doing other things, but I would really appreciate it if one of the mods, because Joe Magician, a longtime friend of the channel as well, and he's done anything you could find of him is great. But that was a really fun couple videos he did about Laris as a Green Seer. And I'm kind of with you. It feels a little lackluster to just say, thank you, Cassie. It does feel a little lackluster to just say, oh, he's a psychopath. I mean, some people are, but it would be nice to have a little bit more characterization than that. But we've got next season coming, and we'll see, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think here at the end, we found plenty of things to nitpick and to, criticize as far as oh, this could have been better. I'm not sure I like how they did that, but I still overall am very positive about the show, and my criticisms of it are oh, try to do this better for the next season so that it's even better. Looking forward to season 2.
Absolutely.
Cregan Stark. Give me Cregan Stark.
Cregan, apparently.
Whatever.
I think next season will probably be very black heavy. Focused on that end.
I suppose they could change my mind. I've always said Cregan, but I also always said Aegon, and I've definitely changed it to Aegon over time. So
I can't say Aegon. It just sounds like egg on toast. I can't do that.
Well, egg is egg. So
yeah, but that's a cute little nickname for a boy. But I don't know. I just can't say Aegon.
You literally just did.
But it feels wrong.
It feels wrong in my mouth.
It did at first for me too. I just said it enough that it doesn't anymore, I guess. But anyway, unless there's something else that we just need to make sure we talk about,
we
can move towards the wrapping it up.
I guess we'll just end on the strong point of what the show did best, and I think it told a lot of truth about the relationships of women, and it told a lot of truth about defying gender norms and sexuality norms, and it did a great job on a lot of things. Disability, not so much, but like on that ending, I think that's what kept me watching, and that's what's going to keep me coming back.
Yeah, I would hard agree with that. They told in my view, a very powerful, relatable story about misogyny, both interpersonally and how that affects your relationships with men and women as a woman and as a man. There's a lot of stuff about sort of early Damon that I think is related to his conception of masculinity and sort of what's allowed as a way to process emotions. All of those early scenes with Rhaenyra constantly being left out of the meeting.
Yeah.
It's like, just pour the drinks, shall I? It felt real.
Yeah.
So I think they've done a lot of very powerful storytelling in terms of sort of the structures of patriarchy and the way that
especially encapsulated in Rhaenys's arc. Because she starts out she is the queen that never was, and as we see from her, she is very wise and capable and reflective and has restraint, and she would have made so much better monarch than Viserys, and kind of a lot of people know it deep down, but that the chips didn't fall that way, and but she starts out the series probably the most cynical about Rhaenyra even having a chance at being queen, and the relationship between her and Rhaenyra has been rocky as well, but yet how she comes around, and there's something about that rekindles that fire in her to fight for her granddaughters too, and make a better world for her granddaughters.
And Rhaenyra including Baela and Rhaena at the table in a way that she wasn't in the war discussions.
Loved it too. I noticed a lot of that. My lens is not one of feminism first. It's just not my experience. It's not the way I look at the world. I definitely try to think about things that way, and I definitely see the points you're making. But to me, the big win is how the characters that I didn't like had reasons for me to sympathize, empathize, feel bad for them, and the characters I did like did things that I'm like, really? That's very questionable. Like it makes you realize that none of it is black and white, and it's a really great show that can make you angry with your favorites and sympathetic to the ones you don't like. So that for me is the big takeaway as well. What the big
honestly,
win.
That is a good quality, in my opinion, for people to develop, to learn to see something empathetic in people that are so unlike yourself, and that, even people that you would normally, either hate or be disgusted with, that you can find something in them to be compassionate about. And
at the end of the day, we are all humans. So everything that is the best about humanity and everything that's worst about humanity.
Don't listen, Caraxes. We know better. Good girl. We're not all humans. Good girl.
Sanrixian world murderers. We didn't talk about the dragons at all.
The dragons.
Sorry, Mallory.
We got a little Vagar time in there.
We did. We talked but like Caraxes, what a beautiful. That's a spicy
noodle boy.
Noodle boy, yes.
Guy noodle. It's my favorite Caraxes. I thought they all looked great. It broke my heart when Jace's or Luke's dragon,
We didn't talk about that at all either.
Yeah,
so many thoughts.
Like the you know what I'm talking about, falling from the sky and just wow.
Yeah.
But we are all humans except for those of us that are dragons. There you go. Part 2, all dragons all the time. We won't even talk with nothing but dragons. Yeah, people are calling for a part 2 already. I see that. But that is really all I have. I kind of have to pee. I drank this much coffee.
I've had a can of Coke, a liter of water, and a cup of tea.
So you're doing it too.
Yep.
So on that note, Blue, Emma, and also LittleWolfBird, who was here earlier, thank you all for joining me. You guys are awesome. I always know it's going to be great content when I get you guys on. I like that you have just different perspectives than me, and we had some really great conversation tonight. You kind of changed my mind about a thing or two, and that's always a big win for me. So again, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
To everyone in the chat, thanks for being here. It's always the chatters, coming up with good questions or comments or jokes or whatever. Like, that's what I love about the live stream format is, like, it's us, but everybody gets to be a part of it if you're here live. And if you're not here live and you're watching later, hey, thanks for that too. Try to join us live one time. It's a lot. I think it's a lot more fun if you get to be here and participate. But even if not, I really appreciate you watching later. So Blue Lemons, LittleWolfBird, they've got their Silent Sisters podcast. Go check it out. There's links to all their stuff down in the description. Emma's got some older essays about color symbolism in A Song of Ice and Fire and some newer D&D stuff she's working on. So you go check that out. I guess we'll catch you all next week. We'll be talking about the Star Wars Disney Plus show Andor. And so for all of us here at Here Be Dragons, thank you, and we'll see you next week. Until then, peace and be excellent to each other.